What's up YouTube? This is CJ.
And Sarah.
It's a Wednesday, and that means it's time for another Keto
Conversations.
So let's get started. Alright, so this Keto Conversation is one where we're talking about kind of the whole idea of net carbs versus total carbs. I'll kind of give you some background as far as why this has kind of come up. For years, I have counted net carbs.
Since you began your low carb
Since I
journey.
began doing keto, net carbs has been the way I have done as far as managing my carbs. So if you don't know what net carbs are, so carbs are, if you have a food label, it'll tell you what your total carbs are for the food. So let's say for example, almonds. 1 ounce serving size of almonds is 5 total carbs. Generally, to get the net carbs, you would subtract either the fiber, or depend if it may have fiber, it could have sugar or alcohol. But in the example of almonds, it would just have fiber.
It's a naturally occurring fiber.
It's a naturally occurring fiber that are just part of almonds. So almonds, 1 serving, which is about 1 ounce or 28 almonds, is
5 total.
5 total carbs with 3 fibers.
Right.
3 grams of fiber.
So then it would be 2 net carbs.
It would be 2 net carbs, and generally that's how you would count so you would kind of do that math all the way through the day to get your carbs. And so if you're using an app like Carb Manager, you could track your net carbs. So as you enter your food in, it will subtract and do the net carb math for you.
And the reason behind that is this whole net carb idea is that generally it's foods that don't tend to affect insulin or blood sugar.
Right.
Things like fiber tend to offset any kind of issue you might have that would raise your insulin or your blood sugar, because fiber digests slowly in the body, and that's how they've come up with this whole net carbs thing. And
then there's also sugar alcohols, so for just about everything we use erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol.
Usually anything that ends in tol or all.
Yeah, is a sugar alcohol, and again, it's when you are doing the math, you would be subtracting the sugar alcohol from the amount of carbs and to help you get your net carbs. So the reason this came up is that so we've all been kind of quarantined somewhere. No better. Actually, it feels like it's almost been all over the world, where in some form or fashion we've been either quarantined or we've been told to shelter in place. Yes, we're kind of coming out of it. Some places are actually going a little bit backwards. Let's not even talk about all that. But this really kind of came up because I've been working at home. We've talked about the whole snacking thing, but I haven't really been all that happy with, I guess, my results as far as keto goes. And
for about how long?
Well, probably for, I don't know, about 2 to 3 months for sure. But I started tracking again, so I had got away from tracking. So when I started keto, I tracked everything that went in my mouth. I was using MyFitnessPal. Again, I'm just throwing out apps just to be talking. I'm not advocating or promoting anything. So I use MyFitnessPal. I had a streak one time of almost 700 days of just tracking my stuff, and that's how I did keto. So lately, I don't know, past probably the last 6 months, I haven't been really tracking my carbs as far as on an app. And you don't track. Sarah has never tracked at all.
Sorry, I'm not helpful here.
Yeah, she has never tracked at all, and that's fine.
Well, I have always been aware of my carbs.
Yeah,
so I've always been aware of my carbs, but yet again, I'm not down to the last carbohydrates.
But also you've also incorporated some intermittent fasting
for the last 3 years or so. I've been doing IF, so I'm eating less food.
You're eating less food. Your window of eating is a lot
so
smaller.
even if I am doing total carbs, if I'm only eating like one meal, you'd have to eat a lot to get 20 total
but
carbs,
that's a whole different keto conversation. That's not what this is about. So, recently I started tracking again, and I started out doing net carbs, and I started, so if you're using Carb Manager, you can see your net carbs, it can track it, but it also show you what your total carbs are for the day as well. And I was looking at it, and I said, wow, my net carbs are within whatever the limit was, but my total carbs are like, 50, 60 grams of carbs. And I'm thinking, wow, maybe that's making a difference to me in my body. Maybe something's changed where net carbs is not as effective as it used to be. Because when I started keto, I just did net carbs.
Well, and individual responses vary, of course.
And that's where I'm going. So where I'm going is, so first of all, I understand this. How you do keto, whether you do net carbs or total carbs, is all a personal choice.
There's no right way.
There's no right or wrong. One of the things that you can think about, though, is if you're doing keto and maybe your results aren't like you think they should be or like you want them to be, maybe you, at the end of this conversation, you might consider doing total carbs for a while versus
and you have not reached your goal weight. You would still like to lose some weight. So this is applicable for CJ personally because you still have things you want to work on.
Right.
So you're trying to figure out
I have not arrived at my magic number of weight loss. I have not arrived. So
if you've been doing keto for a while and you're happy with your results, you've reached your weight loss goal, you don't have to change anything. That's not what this conversation is about.
Keep watching, but don't turn it off. Keep watching.
This conversation is if you aren't,
Yeah.
or if maybe you're getting close to your weight loss goals, what are you going to do now? These are the different scenarios that we're talking about with carbs.
Right. So recently, over the last probably 4 days, I actually changed up the Carb Manager app to track total carbs. Okay, and a very interesting thing started happening when I did that. Because when you start tracking total carbs, then you realize that your choices of what you eat have to be a lot more. You have to be a lot more selective. I mean, you have to really think about what you're about to eat. You won't be snacking as much.
If some of these things are staples of your diet, or if they're just treats.
Yeah. And so that's
it real food?
That's one of the things that I've learned is just in 4 days is that so the reason we're doing this conversation is if you're not happy with the results you're getting on keto for whatever reason, this might be something to think about for you. You might want
because unfortunately there is no magic thing for everyone. It is completely individual.
Yeah, it's a completely individual thing. And now when I started keto, I was basically had been diagnosed as being pre-diabetic. So I was taking metformin. I know that I'm very insulin sensitive. So even when I eat keto things, if it's even a little bit sweet, I know that it has an effect on my blood glucose more than, say, with Sarah. Okay. I just know that as a fact.
I've never had any metabolic, I've never had any glucose problems, insulin problems as far as blood sugar issues whatsoever.
So again, I've been thinking about these things, and I just thought I would try it, and that's part of what again this conversation is about, doing net carbs versus total carbs. And if everything is working fine, you're losing weight like you want to be losing weight, and you're enjoying the things that you can enjoy, you keep doing the things that you're doing. But if you do find yourself and you can't figure out maybe why things are slowed down, or maybe why they aren't going as fast as you want, this might be something for you to think about.
And we have watched and listened to other ketogenic individuals, authors and doctors talk about this subject, and you know, they're all pretty much on board with the same response. You know, test it out for yourself, see what works. And oh, go ahead.
No, and if you do test your blood glucose, that's one of the easiest ways to find out.
Especially after eating something that might be considered reactive.
Right. You know, you eat something, let's say you eat a keto treat, and then you test your blood glucose and see how it does and how it affects it. Because, again, the idea with the different tols, erythritol, we pretty much use erythritol in everything that we make, in every recipe that we make. We actually just learned tonight that 2 pretty well-known keto authorities,
the founding fathers pretty much of the ketogenic diet, Finney and Volek,
they actually recommend erythritol versus the other, because
very few individuals have a bad reaction to erythritol.
And so we didn't even know that. So,
but it's good.
But we use erythritol in a lot of the recipes. But you might also notice in the recipes, if you actually really read through the recipes, that I actually do give Total Carbs and Net Carbs,
just in case.
And I did that because someone years ago actually requested that, and they probably were doing just like what we're talking about now. They were tracking Total Carbs, and what I've found just in the 4 days that I've been doing Total Carbs is that, again, I have to make smarter decisions about what I'm eating. So, like, for example, today I was going to eat one of the perfect keto peanut butter cookies. So a serving size is 2 cookies.
That's the other thing. You've got to watch your serving sizes.
Yeah.
Because that's, you know, because if it's 1 serving and you're eating like half the bag, or you're eating 2 cookies, then it's going to be even more.
For this example, a serving was 2 cookies.
Okay.
Okay, so it wasn't, but Sarah's right. A lot of us, some of the problems we might be having is that we're just eating too much. Even though, so if a serving is, if you really look at this, you do need to pay attention to what the serving sizes are, and then be realistic. Are you really eating that serving size? Are you eating the serving size that you want to eat?
Your serving
size versus, because a lot of times on a lot of the stuff that we're eating, if you really looked at the serving size, like, so for example, this blue cheese dressing that we normally buy, I looked at the serving size today, and it's 2 tablespoons. Okay, so I've actually been weighing food out. I've been measuring food out just to kind of get back in my head. Okay, what does that really look like? Have I gotten a little over, you know,
a little crazy
with the dressing or whatever? So serving size does matter, but again,
going back to your cookie.
Yeah, going back to the cookie. 2 cookies was a serving, but when I did put the 2 cookies in here in my carb manager, it said, wow, I was going to only have maybe like 3 total carbs left for the day. And it was probably like at 1 o'clock when I was doing that. So I started messing around with that, and I started thinking, I said, well, maybe I don't need 2 cookies. Maybe I
want to eat later.
Because maybe I want to eat later and eat something else later. So I'll just have 1 cookie, and I'll figure out what 1 cookie is, you know, serving size, and see if I can live with that versus eating 2 cookies. So again, if you're doing keto,
so it goes back again to whether it's a staple food or a treat. So this is what I was going to bring up, is that usually things like vegetables and nuts and things might be more acceptable for you to subtract the fiber for them, because they're a naturally occurring food where the fiber is attached, versus things like cookies and treats and stuff where they're adding insoluble fiber into it. That was just a side note.
Sure. Now, but when I think about that, like a lot of the desserts that we're making on our channel, we don't add any fiber to anything. We're using, so when we're subtracting fiber, when you see the nutrition, the macros, and you see fiber, it's because there's something
nuts, vegetables.
Right. It's because of the nuts, the vegetables, the almond flour, or something else. It's not us putting in.
It is a food that has fiber within it. It's not. We're not taking like insoluble corn fiber or things like that, where a lot of times like your food bars and things or cereals can have a bunch of fiber put in, so then it brings the net carbs down low, but it wasn't a fiber that was already within that food. Like you take broccoli, it has fiber in it. You don't have to do anything to it for there to be fiber there. So your body recognizes that fiber and just pushes it away, because it deals with it like it's a natural food, right? So that's what I'm saying, is that your body might react differently to things like nuts and fibrous vegetables because they're already built into the food. It's not something that's added into it to try and trick your body. So just a thought.
And one of the things about, we looked at the different keto breads that are on the market. If you actually start looking at the ingredients, there is a lot of stuff that's added to it, and it's added for the purpose of getting those numbers low, because food manufacturers can do math just like you can, and they know if we add this amount of fiber and add these ingredients, it's
going to make it a low carb food.
The numbers will come out right. But that's a totally different video, because this video is about you thinking about if you need to do some changing from net carbs to total carbs. Because again, it is not impossible to do. It's not. I am finding that, but I am finding that, again, you have to make some smarter decisions about things. But it's not impossible to do.
Well, sometimes it can take the guesswork out of things, because you're not having to do a whole bunch of subtraction and math and stuff like that. It's like, this is what it is. It says this amount of carbs, this is what I get. Yeah,
that's true. But I'm talking about in these apps that people have access to. If you use one of these apps, you're not doing any math anyway. You're just punching the food in, and it's doing the math for you. But again, the issue is if your body is reacting to those carbs just like they're total carbs, and you're counting net carbs, but your body reacts to them like they're total carbs, then that might be a problem.
You could be eating like 70 or 100
that
carbs
might be,
a day.
as far as your body's concerned, you might be still eating too many carbs.
So you might not even be gaining weight. You might just be staying where you are, but maybe you're not continuing to lose weight the way that you would like to.
Sure.
It's definitely
now,
a thought.
one of the things as we were kind of reading through some stuff about this, is there's this thing about Dr. Westman and his page 4 list or something of foods.
It's basically the classic original Dr. Atkins induction food list, and Dr. Westman puts everyone on 20 grams of total carbs. That's men, women, children, every race, color, creed. It doesn't matter who you are, because it works. Because everyone is able to lose weight under those parameters. And so sometimes taking yourself down to that rock bottom point and maybe getting your weight loss going again, and then you can experiment and slowly start adding back a few carbs and see where your plateau is. And then you'll know, hey, I need no more than 30, or I need 32, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, but even with that, because when we started keto, and so when I started keto, and you started before I did, I started with the ruled me guys system, I call it. I was kind of chatting with him the other day, and it's a system. But it's this keto, like everybody's basic keto. But one of the things I remember him saying is that the first month or two, you shouldn't even do a bunch of keto treats or anything like that. You should just be pretty strict.
Like rip off the Band-Aid.
Yeah, you should be really strict as far as keto, the way you're counting things. And then 2 months into it, then yeah, you can start trying to add in keto sweets, so on and so forth. We do keto as a lifestyle every day. All right, so
we're 4 years in.
Yeah,
so we're maybe keto, a little bit different than someone 4 months in.
But if you're just starting keto, that's just something for you to think about. But again, it's not impossible to do 20 net carbs. It's not impossible at all. Like I said, the thing that I'm finding is that you just have to be aware of what you're eating and make good choices.
Right.
Because if you don't, and you're really seriously tracking it, you can find yourself, you know, by lunchtime, you're done as far as carbs go. It doesn't mean you can't eat.
Yeah, you could come home and have a hamburger patty.
Right. It doesn't mean that you can't eat. It just means that as far as carbs go, that you're done. And if you've gotten into the habit of, say, having a keto dessert or something like that every night, and let's just be real, sometimes that's what happens, then you have to make some decisions. You have to decide maybe early in the day, okay, I want to have that treat later, so I can't have this now.
Or save your treats for the weekend or Friday night or, you know, a Monday. It doesn't matter, just not every day, because you want something else that is that same amount of carbs.
Anyway, that's just some food for thought. Just some things that I've been thinking about as far as my living the keto lifestyle. Again, it's food for thought for you. If how you're doing keto is working for you, do not change anything. Okay, you don't have to change anything. But if you've gotten to the point where you feel like maybe something's missing or something's not working the way you think it should be working, this just might be something for you to consider, something for you to do some research on, and then go from there and see what happens. So that's our keto conversations for this week. Hopefully it's helped someone. And if you're new here, we do these keto conversations every week. On every Wednesday, a lot of times we're talking about keto lifestyle topics such as this. Sometimes we do keto food unboxings. Generally on Wednesday night, it's a keto lifestyle topics that's geared toward helping you be successful long term on keto. We do new recipes every Sunday, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because that's how you know when the new recipes come out. So it's good seeing you guys, and we hope that you have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk at you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.